Am I the a-hole for telling my dad's ex that she could have been my mom if she didn't cheat on my dad? Let me describe my family a bit. I am the youngest of 4 children, by far the youngest. I have 2 older brothers and 1 older sister. My mom is my dad's second wife. From his first wife, I have an older half-sister who is 3 years older than my oldest full sibling. His first wife, his childhood friend, cheated on him way before, and after my dad made sure my half-sister was his, he divorced her. He met my mom, and a few years later they tied the knot, and the rest is history. My half-sister has always been welcome in our house. She gets along really well with all of us and even calls my mom Annie. Her mom, though, has always been a bit of a harpie. She hates my mom for many reasons outside of she stole my man. My mom is a retired fitness model and current Pilates instructor. So she looks really good for her age while she's more average and plump. So she would always make snarky remarks like, "Oh, did you gain weight?" or "Are you pregnant again?" Even though my mom never stopped taking care of herself. With me, though, she dotes on me and calls me the son she never had. With my older siblings, she mostly just ignore them. So my half-sister is getting married, and my dad and his ex agreed to split the cost of the wedding 50-50. My dad doesn't care about planning for the wedding, so he left it all to the ex and the bride. During one of our meet and greet dinners, my half-sister revealed that she also invited my dad's estranged brother and parents. I can still remember my dad shooting a glare of pure anger at her. I asked my mom later why he reacted like that. I never met my uncle or grandparents on my dad's side, but from how my mom spoke, my dad's ex cheated on him with his brother, and his parents knew it for years before confessing. So my half-sister could really have been my aunt or something if the sperm chase went wrong. My dad's ex was together with my dad's brother for a while after she and my dad divorced, but split soon after. And my dad refused to forgive his family for fooling him like that, and he went no contact with them for 25 years. So back to the dinner. My dad asked in a very stern yet quiet voice why she would, and my half-sister wanted to make her wedding more meaningful by also having a family reunion. And her mother supported her. She told my dad to bury the hatchet, at least for her daughter. My dad said she didn't have any right to tell him how to act. On her way out, my dad's ex and I bumped into each other, and she commented to me how she hoped that I wouldn't have a chip on my shoulder like my dad does. If not for that, they could still be one whole, happy family. I didn't like her tone and reminded her that she was the one who cheated and broke the family. And I told her that she could have been my mom. The last part made her cry like crazy as she ran out of the house. My dad asked me what happened, and I told him, and he just grunted. Did I go too far? Update, wow. I didn't expect so much response for my first ever post. Thank you so much for all your comments. I am glad that at least I wasn't being cruel. My dad's ex just bawled so much and suddenly that I thought I did something awful, and I was worried. As of now, I don't really know what my dad is going to do. I know that my mom and dad are talking about it, but he really seems conflicted. I thought about asking him, but my oldest brother told me not to. He said that I had nothing to do with it, so I shouldn't bother him. But my full siblings, and I just talked to my half-sibling about what she had done in our WhatsApp chat tonight. First, my full sister tore my half-sister a new one, calling all sorts of names before my brother told her to stop or leave the chat. Then he asked her why she did what she did. Turns out that her idea of including a family reunion in her wedding was an idea from our paternal grandparents and her mom. Unlike myself and my full siblings, my half-sister regularly visited her grandparents and talked to them a lot about us. My grandparents apparently wanted to see us really bad, and her mom popped the idea. Then my second oldest brother said that while it was her wedding and she could invite whom she liked, she didn't take our father's feelings into account. There was a reason that he went no contact with them for all these years, and it wasn't up to her to try to fix burnt bridges. My half-sister then asked if he was going to pull money out of the wedding, and my sister sent a brutal message. Is that the most important thing right now? I added that our father hasn't told us anything. Then my half-sister said that she shouldn't have even done this to begin with, and my sister commented, "You think?" She wondered if she could unsend wedding invitations to her grandparents and uncle, but then her mom might pull her money. I sent a chat to my full siblings only chat if dad could fund the whole wedding if that meant not inviting his brother and parents. My oldest brother told me to can it and don't bother dad. She also asked how her dad has been, and I said that he is very conflicted and talking only to my mom about it. I then asked if her mom was okay since I made her cry. She said that her mom calmed down when they returned home. Apparently, they got into an argument when she called my dad a stubborn sop. To be honest, I think she is in a very tight spot. She can either make our dad mad or her mom. I don't know what my dad is going to do, and my oldest brother already reminded me twice that this wasn't my business. I honestly think dad would be up for paying for the entire wedding if his estranged family didn't come. Of course, it's his money though, or maybe he is just so angry that he might pull out altogether. Would I be the a-hole for refusing to raise my husband's affair children now that he and the woman he cheated with passed away? I am a 45 female. My husband, 49 male of 23 years, had an affair with a 20 years old girl since 2020. I found out this year when his affair partner gave birth to twin boys in March. Obviously, we were going to divorce. We've been hashing things out since. It's been a lengthy process, due some properties in common, and we needed to get an accountant since he used the shared account for his affair. Finally, things seemed to be getting close to the end when both my husband and the woman he cheated with were killed in a car crash. By some miracle, the twin babies were not harmed in the crash. Now they are orphaned, and neither set of grandparents can take them in permanently. My husband's parents are both in assisted living. He has no siblings, and the only aunt that could take them refuses. She's been child-free her whole life. On the woman's side, I'm not sure the details in full, but her parents are also not able to be involved long-term, and the one sister she has lives overseas. Since we were still married and he had not updated his will, all his assets are set to pass to me and our two children. I'm not callous enough to leave those babies with nothing, so I agreed to let whoever is their legal guardian to have the remaining balance in the shared account, about $25,000 in savings. The issue is no one wants to take them in. Now my in-laws are pressuring me to take them in and raise them. The issue is I don't want to at all. I wouldn't love them, and I don't want to be the evil stepmother. But I know a big part of me will always have a level of resentment towards them. I will probably favor my own children. It's not their fault, but I truly love my husband, and I thought we were happy before I found out about the affair. We have two daughters, 14 and 16. Obviously, we had disagreements, but never insulted each other's before. Then I found out about the affair, and he began calling me names and blaming me for his cheating. He became abusive and even tried to kick me of the house, my childhood home that is not shared property for the record. I'm also raising teenagers alone now. I don't have the energy to raise babies anymore. My daughters hate their baby brothers. I tried to get them to spend time with their dad as we were divorcing, but they refused. Since this all was found out because of the babies, there wasn't really a way to sugarcoat the situation. And they're also too old to really get away with it. Most of my friends agree it's not my place to care for those children, but my in-laws, the affair woman's parents, and my mother want me to raise them. I know my mom is just having grandkids fever, but it hurts to not have her support. I have to make a decision by next week, or the boys will be going into foster care. At the moment, they are temporarily placed with their maternal grandparents. I feel horrible, but I am very sure I can't take them in. Wibda if I refuse to take them in? Small update. Hey everyone, this blew up far more than I thought, and I appreciate the well wishes for my girls, the boys, and myself. Also for the amount of lovely people offering to see about giving the twins a good home. I might not be their mother, but it does touch me and makes me glad there's good people out there. After thinking carefully and speaking to my lawyer, reading responses, doing research, etc., I plan to speak to the grandparents tomorrow and refuse to take legal guardianship of the boys. I will let them know of the usernames of people that offered meeting for private adoptions or fostering, but my daughters are my priority. It'll be up to the twins' grandparents to decide if they'll proceed with adoption, keep them, or turn them to the state. I wish I had the mental capacity to be the person to do this, but I have two girls that are going through a lot and they need my full attention. I'll also be talking to the lawyers to figure out if the boys have any inheritance claim properly. If they do, I'll separate it and leave it to the lawyers to do what they need to. Do for them to have access when it's best. If they don't, I'll find a way to ensure they have access to the $25K I was going to give them since the beginning. I won't do more, however. My moral compass might be biased, but I don't believe I'm obligated neither morally nor legally to do more than what the word of law says. I can't help everyone, and I shouldn't have to. I have two girls that lost their father, two girls that need therapy, two girls just about to get to college. They've gone through enough without seeing their mother favor the children of their father's mistress. Second update. Hey everyone. So as I said 2 nights ago, I went yesterday to speak to the twins' grandparents. I explained my position and refused to take guardianship of the boys. My mother-in-law almost slapped me when I said that, but thankfully this was all done in a public place and my father-in-law stopped her. The maternal grandparents kept pleading for me to raise them since they didn't want to lose them. I kept saying no, and when they called me selfish, I lost it. I told them to their face the only selfish people in this mess were them and their son and daughter. Their son, my husband, for cheating and then making the divorce hell on me and my girls. Their daughter, because she was a hole. I used another word that went after a married man twice her age. I told them if I heard from them again, I would request to cease and desist. I also informed my parents-in-law that they won't have access to my daughters for the foreseeable future. I'll explain why in a bit. We were at a restaurant, but I didn't stay for the meal. I also sent an email to my lawyer so he can ensure CPS and any agency involved in the welfare of the twins is aware I'm not going to be their guardian or be involved. Then I sent an email to my in-laws with all the usernames and websites from people here in Reddit that have offered to do interviews for the twins' adoption. I won't be involved beyond this point. So please, as lovely as it is, I can't help you if you are interested in the boys. Yesterday was the end of my involvement. As for why my in-laws won't see my girls, I spoke to my daughters and decided to find out more about their thoughts before I went to meet the grandparents. My youngest refused to speak to me, which I found very out of place for her. My eldest then asked for just the two of us to speak. That's when she explained that my in-laws had been going on about how the girls need to get ready to go to public school instead of their private school and to get jobs right out of high school, since I will have to provide the twins with private schooling and college money. Apparently, they also were told to start moving there. Stuff to share a room. My girls have separate rooms, since the twins need more space. This was not known to me, mostly cause that would never happen. Apparently, my in-laws have been basically bullying the girls because the babies take priority. Yeah, that's not happening. I told the girls that their grandparents have no say in where they go to school, their college funds, or how the rooms are set in our house. Also that I do agree they could use a part-time job during college and maybe a scholarship, but their tuition will be paid. I told them not to blame the babies for the stupidity of the adults. They told me they understand, but they still don't want to interact with their brothers for now. The for now part gives me hope they'll get through things. For now, we're going to do some changes in the house. The girls and I both don't like their still in office space that my husband used. We're going to make it into a gaming room for all of us. I plan to take down some pictures that have my husband in them and put them in albums for the girls. We just want to make the house more ours. As for people wondering why my girls wanted nothing to do with their father, my daughters were the ones that discovered the affair and told me when my husband took them to meet the twins at the hospital. He had asked them to keep it secret, but my girls told me. After that, my husband began treating them horribly too. He burned all bridges with the girls. Am I the a-hole for clarifying via social media post that my wife's baby was the product of her illicit affairs? I am a 49 male. My wife, Cynthia, 45 female, got pregnant against my will after we had discussed and agreed on not having any more kids. We already have 18 female, 13 male, 8 male for male. I was scheduled for a vasectomy. She claimed she was on the pill, but I was using protection because I wanted to make sure nothing happened. I had my vasectomy, but she was pregnant a few weeks later. She was overjoyed, and I wasn't. I didn't want to be an old dad. She claimed the pills didn't work. I never pushed for her getting surgery because I know it's harder for women, and she said injectable contraceptives hurt her health. I checked all my protections, and all of them had been pierced. We had a huge argument that ended with her crying. My trust has been destroyed. I assume that nothing she says is true. She also got fired when she was 3 months pregnant. I found it weird that she didn't fight it. Then she said she needed to stay home, which is exactly what I dreaded. She said morning sickness was too bad to go to work. For our entire 18 years of marriage, she is pushed to be a stay-at-home mom. We can't afford it. She gave me the silent treatment for weeks after our second was born when I said she needed to find a job. I never heard the end of it, as she calls it, when I made her leave our baby and sent her to get a job, like I had ripped her away from our kid. I got suspicious, thinking that perhaps she had resigned and was lying. I know it's wrong, but I got into her phone. Long story short, she had a workplace affair, and she and her affair partner both got canned. She slept with him during her training out of state and eventually scheduled every assignment out of town to cheat with him. He is in his late 50s, married. She also slept with my cousin's son, Nelson, 29 male, and he's a drug addict. I saw and heard messages between them. He would come to my house when I was out. I have asked the neighbor, and they confirmed. My neighbor said Nelson would show up sometimes 2 days in a row when I was out. I checked my schedule, and it could have been when I went to Ohio for 3 weeks. I came home on weekends, but everything seemed normal. What's worse is that Nelson calls me uncle. I let him stay over a couple of times. She also used our own kids, our 2 youngest, as leverage, promising that he could see them if he didn't pressure her, and kept his mouth shut. So she obviously put him in some type of a stepdaddy role. She told him the pregnancy was his baby. I hate him, But I think she manipulated him because he has zero relationship with his parents or his siblings, and he kept texting her about how she was like home to him. I lost it and woke her up. She tried to claim that she was essayed by both men, then said she was pressured into it because they threatened her. I confronted both men. I reached out to her ex-coworker via social media, but he blocked me after a couple of exchanged messages. Nelson did get belligerent, and it could have probably ended in a real fight if I had him in front of me. The paternity test came as negative. I moved out and got a lawyer. I refused to be at the hospital during childbirth. It was a stillborn. I was shocked. Even if it wasn't mine, it felt dark and strange. I offered my kids emotional support, but didn't allow her to cry to me. I had to get a court order to get a DNA test on all our kids. They are mine. A few weeks ago, people on Facebook started asking questions and attempting to call me out for not posting anything about the baby. I think she might have told someone that I wasn't present at childbirth because a couple of people came at me. We are getting a divorce, and I'm very angry that she's still trying to milk it. I told each person the truth separately, but eventually got fed up with looking like the bad guy and wrote a post saying thank you to everyone who has reached out to insult me. But the baby was not my child as per the paternity test. It had to step away from social media because of it. Her family called me asking to take it down. They didn't know the full story but said this is not how things get solved. I'm not deleting it, despite being called out for S-shaming. While I worked so hard for our family, she was texting her best friend and complaining about how I'm not the shadow of my former self, how I look old and let myself go. Her friend had an angry response, but they're not on speaking terms anymore. Cynthia claimed that her friend ghosted her, and she doesn't know why. I'm suing for custody, since she repeatedly took my kids across the state so that Nelson could hang out with them and left them with her dad before I came home from work so that she could go do work stuff and have sex outside of our marriage. She had been begging me not to ever tell the kids about the paternity test, but they needed to know the truth before she twisted the narrative. My daughter won't speak to her, and our second child wants to come live with me. I'm sick of crying sporadically because sometimes I'm driving and can't hold it in. I can't even watch Corn because she and her affair partners come to mind. I had a family, and despite everything, I was proud and happy, and she took it away. I didn't know she saw me as less. She told her ex-best friend that she loved watching the executives in her job. At least her friend defended me, although we are not close. My lawyer says we should contact her as a character witness. I hate Cynthia, and I told her during her pregnancy when she wanted to initiate SEG. She's naturally overweight, and I loved her as such. But I hated the knocked up by the affair partner version of her. I told her she looked grotesque like Jabba the Hutt. Her lawyer is pushing for family counseling. I would only agree to civil co-parenting, but nothing oriented at couples reconciliation. She calls it a mistake, but to me, she bred via infidelity and created an entire human being, and I will never forget that. Am I the a-hole for refusing to take my post down? Am I the a-hole for refusing to show compassion? All I want is to get out of her life, and I feel like she's trying to keep me from moving on. Sorry if I don't make too much sense, but my mind is still foggy. My stepdaughter died 4 weeks ago, and I caught my husband and his ex-wife in our bed. My stepdaughter Becca, 14 female, died 4 weeks ago. I've been in her life since she was 7 years old. We were extremely close. My husband Derek, 40 male, his ex-wife Sam, 38 female, and I, 35 female, get along very well. There has never been an issue in the 7 years that I've been with Derek. Sam has always been kind to me. She didn't even care that Becca called me mom too. Right after Becca's passing, Sam had so much anxiety and depression that she was unable to be by herself. She has no family besides us, so we invited her to stay with us. Sam hardly leaves the house. She mostly just sleeps in Becca's room, which is completely understandable. I always tell her that I'm here if she needs me and that I want her to take her time with grieving and that there is no pressure to go back to her home. Today I needed to run some errands, so I asked Sam if she'd like to join me to get out of the house. A little bit, but she declined and said she'd rather just stay at the house and sleep. I told Derek that I was leaving and that I would be back in 2-ish hours. He works from home. I also told him to check on Sam every once in a while and maybe try getting her to eat something. After stopping at the post office, I realized I forgot my library book that I needed to return, so I went back home to get it. As soon as I walked in the door, I heard moaning coming from mine and Derek's bedroom. I immediately knew what was happening, and my heart completely broke in that moment. I wasn't completely sure what to do, but I ended up deciding to confront them. So I walked to the bedroom and opened the door and began yelling at them both. Sam started having an anxiety attack and ran to the bathroom while Derek kept apologizing profusely. I asked him what the hell was happening. He told me that he made himself and Sam some lunch and they began talking about Becca and shared some memories. And then Sam ended up kissing him, and he didn't pull back, and then it ended with him in our bed. They're begging me to understand that it was just grief that caused them to become intimate and that they both made a mistake. I don't know what to do. I love this man, and I love Sam. I'm heartbroken that they did this to me and put me in this position. I feel so stuck. Update 1. I decided that I'm filing for a divorce. I can't ever trust Derek again. It sucks because we had an amazing relationship, I thought. He's always been great, so this was a complete shock to me. Last night, Derek came over to talk. He confessed to a lot. Turns out it wasn't their first time having sex like most people thought. They've been having sex since 3 months before Becca died. I'm completely shocked and heartbroken. Sam also reached out last night and thanked me for everything I've done for her and told me she was sorry. I didn't respond. I blocked her. I did so much for Sam and considered her a friend, so this hurts a lot, more than I can handle. This is all too much. As hard as this is going to be, I need to leave Derek and cut them both out of my life. I am ready to do so. I am done. Also, some people are saying I deserve this because I should have known better than to let Sam into our home around Derek. But you need to understand that I'm a giving person. I trust people more than I should. I truly thought Sam was an amazing person. I know it's unusual to become friends with your husband's ex-wife, but it's just how it went for us, and I shouldn't be blamed for what happened. Update 2. I'm getting lots of questions about some things, so I figured I'd answer a few of them. Have I told anyone about what happened besides my mom? Yes, I told a few friends and some family members. Most of them are supportive of my decision and aren't speaking to Derek. Where is Derek staying? Currently, he's staying at a hotel. Our friends refuse to let him stay with them. He's lost a lot of people due to his awful decisions. Has he tried fighting me on getting a divorce? Yes, he begged me not to file for divorce, but when I told him I needed him to just let me go and that I was too exhausted to fight him on this, he let it be and agreed to getting a divorce. Why isn't Derek staying with Sam? He told me he didn't want to continue to hurt me, so he told Sam he was done with her for good, and that they have no reason to speak to each other anymore. I have no idea if that'll last, and if they'll just end up together, but I truly don't care what they do anymore. I just want peace. What was Derek's excuse for cheating? He told me that they just accidentally reconnected one night when I was away at my mom's. He was stressed we weren't conceiving and were having miscarriages, so he vented to Sam, and then somehow that led to Seg. Disgusting of them both, I know. Update 3. I just found out that he is staying with Sam and not at the hotel. He told me it's too expensive to stay at a hotel, and Sam is the only one that'll help him right now. I had a feeling this would happen. Just knowing that they're still probably sleeping together hurts my heart. I talked to a lawyer this morning, and we are proceeding with the divorce, and Derek agreed to it. It's actually happening, and I feel some relief that he's not fighting me on this. My mom leaves on Sunday. I'm scared to be alone, but I go back to work on Monday, so I'm hoping it'll be a good distraction. I'll keep updating if anything else happens. Update 4. I decided to go through some of Becca's stuff today. I just found her diary in a box in the back of her closet. Would it be wrong to read some of it? I feel like it would help me feel closer to her, but part of me feels like it's wrong too. I haven't told Derek that I found it either, and I'm unsure if I should tell him. Update 5. I figured it's been a few days, so I should give a little update. My mom is leaving in a couple hours, so I'll be alone. I'm kind of nervous about it. She helped me stay distracted and kept me going. It can't to handle her being gone. I go back to work tomorrow, first day back since Becca passed away. I'm looking forward to it though, because it'll keep me distracted. Also, I did read some of Becca's diary. It made me love her even more. She was such a sweetheart. I went back a few months and saw that she noticed some weird behavior between Derek and Sam. Didn't mention that she knew of the affair, but she just wrote that she thought it was kind of strange that they all three would hang out more than usual. Without me, I might read more, but so far I haven't found anything that's disturbing, just her being a teenager and talking about crushes, fights with friends, happy family memories, etc. Tomorrow I'm also talking to my lawyer, so I might have more updates on that. Thanks for the continuous love and support, everyone. Would I be the a-hole for not having my cancer-stricken ex-husband stay with me through his treatment? For most of our marriage, my husband, 39 male, and I, 37 female, had a very happy relationship. We had good jobs, decent money, 2 kids, and loved each other. Then he got diagnosed with a rare form of cancer, and we went through years of painful treatments and recovery together. We moved to a small house to be close to the research center where he underwent treatment. His parents paid half of the down payment on the house. The other half was from our savings and investments. In the divorce, he gave me the house and took all of his medical debt. We have been divorced a year, but now his cancer has come back, and he needs treatment again at the same research hospital. He wants to stay in what is now my house while undergoing treatment, and his parents expect me to house him and look after him because he was generous in letting me have the house without taking his rightful share from the equity. When we were married and he was undergoing treatment, it was new stuff that was expensive and also very physically draining on him. We were lucky that both our jobs were supportive and flexible, but with his health issues, little kids, and expenses, we had to downgrade our lifestyle a lot. That plus the physical changes in his body made him very depressed. Whenever he felt a bit better, he'd go stay in his hometown. It's a small town where most of his family and a lot of his childhood friends live. I was doing all the caretaking of him while also dealing with insurance complications. I was also managing the kids, the entire household, in my full-time job. We had help from friends and neighbors, but it was very hard. I wasn't happy about him spending his healthy days away from us, but it was good for his mental health, so I didn't feel like I could object. While he was staying there, he had reconnected with his high school girlfriend. A couple years ago, he admitted to me that he was sleeping with her, and I filed for divorce. He had fully recovered from his cancer by then. There are other aspects around the cheating that left me very heartbroken and feeling betrayed. His giving me the house and taking all the debt was an apology of a sort his parents feel that I owe him for getting the house, and should let him stay there for the 3 months his treatment is at the facility. I do want him to be well, and I don't want my kids to lose a loving father. But I can't deal with having him around me, especially not if I end up being his nurse and caretaker again. I'm still very bitter about how our marriage ended. A lot of people close to me are telling me that I should support him for the sake of my kids. Would I be the a-hole if I say I can't do that? Update. The Sunday after I made the post, my ex-in-laws picked up the kids for a zoo trip. They sometimes come to pick them up to entertain them, and so I thought nothing of it. A few hours later, a very teary and contrite mother-in-law dropped off 2 bawling kids with me. She told them their dad is sick and will die if he doesn't stay with us and go to the hospital. We hadn't had a talk with the kids yet about the diagnosis, and she dropped it on them that he is dying from cancer. He is not dying. It's a painful treatment, but he'll recover. I was so furious I was raging. I called the ex and tore him a new one. He was shocked too, and we together exploded at his mom. She broke down and cried, begging me to not take away her grandkids from her, as if I'd trust her after this. X and I together talked to the kids, him on video, and assured them that yes, he is sick, but he'll be fine. He just needs to go to the hospital and they'll make him better like the last time he was sick. The kids settled after that, but my oldest has been at me crying and begging to make dad come live with us. I promised them I'd talk to dad and figure out what's the best thing to do. I swallowed a lot of bile to talk to him about why he was doing this. We had a pretty long and detailed discussion. The bottom line is that he's broke. He still has a decent job, but his credit is ruined. He has a lot of debt, and he stupidly got the cheapest insurance that barely covers anything. Fiancée is no help either. She's worse off financially. So he needs a place to stay. He can't afford this otherwise. His parents are funding some of his medical payments and are already stretched. He was financially all right when we broke up, so I have no idea what happened in such a short time. Anyway, X and his GF moved into my daughter's room. My daughter happily gave it up to her dad and is sharing her little brother's room. Both kids are over the moon happy to have their dad in. They're home. My daughter keeps checking on him every few minutes to make sure he's still okay. Am I'll traumatize my kid? I'll never forgive that woman for this. I let the GF move in with him because I was too angry to care about who came to look after him as long as it wasn't me. I didn't know how I could bear having her in my home, but it appears to be more misery for her than me, and that strangely makes it more tolerable for me. She is teary-eyed and crying all the time. It's only been 3 days, but I am so annoyed I want to shake her and tell her to pull it together. The current treatment plan is for 3 months. I am counting down the days. I am thankful for the many people who gave me great advice on my last post. I wasn't expecting things to go this way, but they played me by manipulating my kids. I'll slowly pull myself and the kids away and move, but for now I have to deal with this for my kids' sake. Edit. I was trying to make this update more than a week ago. So to add to that, X's treatment is coming along nicely. The tumors that grew again are much smaller than before, and the new stuff that they're giving him is more directed to, so he's not having as many bad symptoms as he had last time. I had promised myself I would do nothing to help, and I stayed away from both X and his fiancée. But I did end up helping him deal with insurance. His fiancée has the personality of a wet noodle and cries all the time. It was easier for me to do it than deal with her struggling. X is polite enough to me, but his personality has changed. He is a different person and not very nice towards his fiancée. I didn't expect to, but I feel sorry for her. Update 2. My ex and his fiancée moved out today. His treatments went very well this time around. He had to deal with general weakness and nausea, but no vomiting and voiding like the previous time. It's amazing how much medicine improves and changes. He'll need monthly shots for a while, and I agreed to house him for a weekend next month, but after that, he's on his own. The stay went well. We had no drama really. I kept myself busy and kids, and I traveled a lot. They both managed the rest of the stuff all right, and things worked out. My kids are happy and back to their normal stuff. I had a talk with my daughter about how grandma exaggerated things to get her way, and that is not okay, and she understood. She has shown no interest in visiting her grandparents, and I am happy about that. The last week of his stay, his fiancée went back to their town to take care of some stuff since he was doing pretty well on his own. He and I had a few long, detailed conversations. They were cathartic in some ways and saddening and maddening in others. I think I got some closure. At least I'm not feeling the bitterness the way I used to. I may make another post about what he told me, his reasoning and justifications. On another positive note, all that dressing up and going out I've been doing has worked out for me. I met someone, we've been on 2 dates, and it's going great so far. This is my first time dating since the divorce, so I am keeping my expectations muted, but still it is very exciting and fun. Update 3. I tried writing about our conversations, but the process of thinking about it and analyzing it is very depressing. When we had the talk, I felt much better than I do looking back at it now. Then my new date invited me on a trip during the Memorial Day weekend. One of my close neighbor friend encouraged me to go while she watched my kids. I was pretty excited about this vacation, my first adult-only vacation in over a decade. I didn't want my overthinking about my ex to make me depressed during the trip, so I put that on hold. The trip went well, and I am pretty optimistic about this new relationship. Sorry to you guys for taking so long with this. But now that I feel happier, I can have a more grounded take on my ex's views. To start with, he was again very apologetic about what he put me through and that I deserve better from him. When he was going through his cancer treatment while we were married, I was extra careful with his feelings and being calm and patient. With him, that had become so much of a habit that even when he told me about his affair, I still treated him with kid gloves. I was firm about wanting divorce and refused to consider his insistence on working it out, but I swallowed my anger and didn't go off at him. But this time I got to properly express my hurt and anger at him, and that was very, very cathartic. He took it okay for the most part, but also was stung by it and got defensive. He told me in some detail about how he and his GF got together. She was his high school girlfriend. She came from an abusive background, and in high school he had helped her and did a lot to encourage her to move out of that situation. When he moved away to go to university and she stayed their small town, the long distance thing dissolved their relationship. He wanted a more big city life, and a few years after college, he met me. When he was visiting his parents' home more while recovering, he reconnected with her. At that time, she was struggling to leave an abusive relationship. It again was like their high school days where she was in trouble and he was the knight in shining armor. I suppose that could be very attractive to someone who's been facing weakness and their own mortality. When he was home, I was waiting on him hand and foot. I didn't even know that he could have enough energy to do all the legwork for this other woman and was spending quite a bit to help her. That's where his currently being broke comes from. She was in financial trouble and he solved all her problems. He is quite proud of how much he helped her and doesn't agree with me that he took something away from me in making me work for him while he put his energy away from our family. I don't want to say that I don't support helping someone escape abuse, but I can't help feeling exploited. His response was that he did a favor by spending time in his town because that lessened the burdens on me. It is true that when he went away, life got easier by a lot. I had more time. I could focus more on kids. We could cook anything, eat anything. But if he had that kind of energy, then he could have helped me, you know? But he says that I was always stressed out and upset. My attitude was a drain on him. I resent that because I remember how careful I was around him, how much I made myself pliable to be his nurse. He brought up examples of how once I was so upset, I went to the balcony to scream. The time I snapped at the kids and then cried about it. He had stories of how I was pushy and difficult. He wasn't making it up. I have my faults, but I did work hard and tried my best. I didn't realize that my help and support wasn't good enough for him. I didn't make him feel good. I just did the bad work. I think he resents me because he feels he owes me. He likes his GF because she owes him and is dependent on him. Update 4. I introduced my BF to my kids this past weekend. We've been spending so much time together, and talking almost every day, and I finally felt ready to bring him into their lives. I gave my ex a heads up that I am dating and will be introducing the guy to our kids. He went very quiet on the phone, then asked details about who he is, etc., and I gave those to him. He tried to dissuade me from letting kids meet my BF, says it's too soon and it's not healthy for the kids and whatnot. As if I got the choice to make such a call when he got his GF into my kid's life. Anyway, I finished the call annoyed. Last night, he calls me back to discuss my BF. Apparently, he looked into him, which is fine by me. There's not much for him to criticize there. So he asked me if I am with my BF for money. To say I was furious is an understatement. My BF is in a lucrative career and he may be a couple tax brackets above me. I don't know for sure, haven't talked finances with him. But I do pretty well myself and I've supported myself and my kids and even my lousy ex. And this is what he asks me. I retorted that no, I am not with him for his money. I am with him because my ex-husband dumped me after exploiting me. He got upset at that and says that I have a barbed tongue and people think I am so nice but don't see how verbally abusive I can be. So that's nice. All I've done for him, and he has no problem being cruel to me again and again. Update 5. I received a few messages asking for updates, but things have been calm, so there are no updates. My current relationship is going well. We are working on building our blended family. My 2 kids and his son get along really well. They are tight together. We have been thinking of buying a house together and selling mine. I am both excited and nervous about doing that. Ex didn't act up after that last argument. He's been more aloof than before, but that's preferable, so I don't care. Things are well on his side too, as far as I know. Update 6. My BF and I bought a new place together. I've sold the house, and I am rather relieved to leave that place. I like having a home, but there were too many bad memories there, and the emotional baggage of my ex-in-laws thinking they still have a claim on the place. I will miss my old neighborhood though. I had a lot of supportive friends there. My kids love the new place. It's bigger, with a bigger yard and nicer schools. As we were clearing out the house, I told my ex to pick up a few of his things still left behind. He had a few boxes of pictures and kids' artwork, and some small things, and I left them in the garage for him to come pick them up. He came to get them and ended up full on crying over the memories. We didn't talk or interact in any way. I just gave him water and left him alone to calm down. But honestly, I felt such visceral rage at his crying. I thought I was over this and past is past, and I am happy with my life now. But at that moment, I felt so much anger, and it upset me that I am still not fully past what he had done. His relationship with his fiancée has ended, and I do feel a bit bad about that. They were supposed to be married in July, and that didn't happen. Then I heard from some mutual friends that she has moved back with her abusive ex. They have kids together, and there was a lot of pressure from her family to reconcile. And yes, her family is abusive too. My ex had helped her against them when they were first dating, and they've always held that against him. So she stayed with ex while he was digging her out of her financial crisis. Now that she's in the clear, she goes back to the guy who put her in that hole. In a way, my ex, and by extension me, help some deadbeat out there make a lot of savings. In that part, I feel angry on ex's behalf. I mean, I hate him for my own reasons, but he did try to help his old friend and high school sweetheart, and she screwed him over. Am I the a-hole for laughing in my sister-in-law's face when she DNA tested my daughter? I, 30 male, have a daughter who's 6. I'm not biologically related to her at all. There is no blood relation between us. I was friends with her mother for most all of my childhood. We were never involved romantically and were always just friends. She had her daughter at 23 with her 25-year-old husband. When my daughter was a newborn about 3 months, technically both her mother and father were killed. I won't go into too much detail for privacy reasons, but it was workplace shooting. My friend and her husband had worked in the same building and were both killed. Both my friend and her husband had grown up with less than ideal families and didn't have any siblings, so there wasn't any next of kin for their daughter to go to. However, because I was close with them, I was able to adopt her. Even though I had been iffy about the idea of kids, I didn't want their daughter to grow up in foster care or around people who didn't have a connection to her bio parents. So I stepped in. My parents and siblings know that my daughter is not my actual daughter, biologically speaking. My daughter, I'll call Lily for the post, also knows that she's adopted. I never really hid the fact that she was adopted. She knows her parents are dead and were killed by a bad man, but I'm saving the details for when she's older. Lily does not look like me at all. She looks exactly like her mother and biological dad. Most people assume that I'm her bio dad, and that she just took after her mom. I don't ever really correct this when and if people assume this, because it just seems unnecessary. My brother has been with his fiancée for about 2 years now. A few weeks ago, we were all meeting up at my parents' house, and my sister-in-law saw an old picture of me, my friend, and her husband. She pointed to my friend and asked who she was, and I explained that was Lily's mother. Sister-in-law got quiet and stood in front of the picture for a while. I didn't think much of it. To clarify, she knows my friend died, but I guess didn't know that she had been married, or that Lily is not my bio daughter. I suppose she assumed my daughter was mine, and my friend's biological daughter. My sister-in-law got a DNA test done on my daughter behind my back. She used my brother's DNA for the test, and when it came back that they weren't related, she knew that meant me and Lily weren't related. She came up to me with the results and waved them in my face, saying that I was taking care of a dead woman's affair baby. She said this to me in front of my daughter. I just stared at her for a while before bursting out laughing at this. I told her I knew Lily wasn't my biological daughter, and that this thing called adoption exists. Her face went red and she stormed off. My brother is mad I embarrassed his fiancée, but I said she embarrassed herself by DNA testing a kid that isn't hers and then parading the results up to me. What did she want me to do? What was her goal with this? Did she want me to break down and abandon my daughter? My brother said she thought she was doing the right thing and called me an a-hole. I don't feel like the a-hole, especially considering my sister-in-law was the one who stuck her nose where it doesn't belong. I'm asking for Reddit opinions, mostly just for validation. So was I the a-hole? Update. My brother thought I had been having an affair with Lily's mom and thought I was Lily's bio dad. He tricked sister-in-law into believing that I was in a relationship with Lily's mom and was Lily's bio dad. Sister-in-law then saw the picture of Lily's mom and her husband and assumed Lily was an affair child between the two of them and was being led on to believe that I was Lily's bio dad. My sister-in-law ended up coming to my house and apologizing, as well as telling me the full story. My brother put her up to the DNA test. When I first adopted Lily, my brother for some reason believed that Lily was my bio daughter. He thought that me and Lily's mom were together and just weren't telling anyone. He believes that when she got pregnant, Lily's mom told me that Lily was mine and that she was going to just say that it was her husband's, and I went along with it because I didn't really want kids. SL was under the impression I believed I was Lily's bio dad. She saw the picture of Lily's mom and I, and after asking for clarification on who she was, assumed we were together in it, and then got suspicious when she saw that the other guy in the picture, Lily's actual bio dad, looked a lot like Lily. I also want to clarify, I didn't tell her that Lily's bio dad was in the picture because she had specifically pointed to Lily's mom, and I assumed she knew that Lily was adopted. I didn't know my brother had been telling her lied for nearly 2 years. She got the DNA test out of her own suspicions, and my brother helped her with it because he thought it would reveal that I was actually Lily's bio dad. He manipulated her into thinking that it would clear the air of suspicion, when really he was just trying to prove that I was really Lily's bio dad and lying about the reasons for adoption. Well, of course the results proved I wasn't Lily's bio dad and that my brother was wrong. My brother felt too embarrassed to confess to his fiancée that he had lied about the circumstances, which is why sister-in-law confronted me with the results. My sister-in-law also apologized for showing me the results and from my daughter. She told me that her mom had an affair and cheated on her father, got pregnant with another man's kid, and had let her father believe the kid was his. Her father was devastated by this when he found out, and she grew very resentful of women who do that to their spouses. She had wanted to sit me down and talk to me about it without my daughter, but when she saw me with my daughter, she got angry thinking I was being led on to believe I was raising my daughter when I was actually raising another man's kid. And she ended up exploding and immediately waved the results in my face. My sister-in-law does feel very guilty, and she's angry at my brother for lying to her. I'm not angry at her for doing the test, because she thought she was doing the right thing. I also forgave her for the way she told me about the results, because clearly affairs are a sensitive subject for her, and I can understand why she would have exploded like that. I'm pretty sure she plans to break up with my brother now, and I don't blame her. When I called and asked my brother about this, he admitted it. When I asked why he would think this, he said that he couldn't think of a reason why a man who had been against having kids at the time would willingly adopt a baby without having a blood connection to it. He told Asile that I was Lily's bio dad, and was aware of the fact. He took it a step further and said that me and Lily's mom were together at the time of Lily's conception. Both me and my parents are going low contact with my brother for a while now. I know I will forgive my brother eventually, but I can't do that right now. He believed I was low enough to have an affair with a married woman, get her pregnant, take no responsibility, allow her to pass off the kid as another man's, and then only take responsibility because her mom died. Update 2. Some people were wondering what happened with my brother and sister-in-law. Well, she dumped him. They tried to make it work, but that only lasted a few days, and she ended up giving him the ring back. My brother got shift-faced drunk on my front lawn in the middle of the night. I was mad because Lily had school the next morning, and this woke her up. My brother was yelling insults to both me and my daughter. We called police, and he spent the night in jail for drunken disturbance. I believe the official charge was something like that. I sure as hell pressed charges because he was saying some borderline threatening statements to me and my daughter. I don't think it's enough to qualify for a restraining order, but if it is, I'll get a temporary one. On a more positive note, Lily is doing well. She's getting straight A's in even subject and is excited about her first ever science project. She's been talking my ear off about it. Mother-in-law deliberately infected my daughter with chickenpox. I'm livid. She doesn't think it's a big deal. I can hardly type this out because thinking about it makes me so angry. Earlier this year, my husband, 31 male, and I decided to spend Christmas with his family for the first time since my daughter was born last September. Since they live 12 hours away, we decided to stay for a few weeks before Christmas so they could spend loads of time with Annie, 13 months. We arrived early like we planned, and everything was great. I've had a few disagreements with my mother-in-law, Trish, 56 female, in the past over my parenting style. She criticized me for using disposable diapers, buying baby food from the supermarket, and not raising Annie as an organic baby, but everything seemed great. After a day or two settling in my husband, and I decided to pick up a few gifts from a mall around an hour away before the last-minute rush kicked in. My father-in-law, 60 male, tagged along. Trish said she was happy to take care of Annie. We got back a few hours later, and Annie was down for a nap on a blanket I didn't recognize. Trish said one of her friends dropped by and gave it as an early Christmas gift. It looked pretty old/worn, but I figured one of her hippie friends was just recycling it. The next 2 weeks were fine, aside from Trish making a point to prepare meals for Annie from scratch. I mentioned this to my husband, and he said to just let her be. Annie mostly mushed the food Trish gave her with her hands through the bowls on the floor, as she's been doing at the moment. Trish said it would take her a while to get used to nutritious meals. I was getting sick of her meddling, but it was only for a few weeks, so for the sake of the holidays, I let it slide. The day after Christmas, Annie was really unsettled and wouldn't stop fidgeting and crying. I took her temperature, and she had a fever, so I kept an eye on her for the next few days, and it thankfully started to go down. This morning, she started to get a rash and blisters on her arms and legs, and I freaked out. I was packing a bag to drive to see a doctor when Trish asked where I was going. I told her Annie had a rash, and I was taking her to see a doctor. She got a weird, smug smile on her face and told me there was nothing to worry about. When I asked her what she was talking about, she said, without even looking at Annie, that what she had was just chickenpox. I asked her how she could possibly know that, and she casually admitted one of her friend's grandkids had chickenpox a few weeks ago, so she asked them to wipe a blanket over the child's arms, legs, and face, and bring it to her house. At this point, I couldn't believe what I was hearing, so I asked if that blanket was the gift Annie was sleeping on. She said it was. I lost my shift. To be honest, I don't really remember what I said because I was up most of the night for 2 days checking on Annie. I just unleashed on Trish asking what the F was wrong with her. My husband and father-in-law came to try to calm things down, and Trish dug in her heels and said chickenpox was the best and most natural thing for Annie to build up her immunity. I already have a vaccination schedule in place with my pediatrician, and she was booked in to get immunized for chickenpox at 18 months. We drove to see the doctor, and he confirmed she had it. He said I'll have to cut Annie's nails short and might have to tape socks on her hands while she sleeps because kids so young can scratch until they bleed, and that will leave scars. On the drive back, my husband started making excuses for Trish that she was only doing what she thought was best. I couldn't believe he was defending her, and we fought most of the way home until I told him to stop talking to me. Annie's been scratching like crazy, and I just had to tape socks over her hands. Trish tried to talk to me when we got back, and I told her to get out of my sight. We were meant to stay until Wednesday, but I just finished packing up our stuff so we can leave first thing in the morning. I'm so angry, I can't even think. Whenever I hear Trish moving around in the kitchen, my heart starts beating faster, and I feel like going out there and grabbing her by the hair. I don't ever want to see her again or let my daughter see her again. What can I say to make her and my husband realize the enormity of what she's done? I don't think I can speak coherently to their faces until Annie gets better. Update. Didn't think it would be possible, but things got worse. I got up first thing the next morning and started packing our stuff into the car. Once I opened it up, I kept the keys in my pocket since I was going in and out. Usually we use Jack's set and leave mine in my bag. While I was packing, he sat in the kitchen with Trish and my father-in-law, 60 male, and chatted and had coffee like nothing was wrong. Annie was mercifully still asleep, so I just gently belted her in and closed her door when Jack came out and asked if I had everything. I said we were good to go as soon as he was. He said okay, and calmly took out his key set and centrally locked the car, locking Annie in. I asked him what the hell he was doing, and he said we wouldn't be leaving until I apologized to Trish. I think I was stunned into silence because he then took the chance to rehash what he said the previous day, that Trish thought she was doing what was best, that chickenpox doesn't kill you, and that I was making a bigger deal out of this than I needed to and making Trish feel bad. Yes, making her feel bad. All the comments from my last post were swirling around in my head, and I told him he needs to stop being a son and start being a father. He screwed up his face and said he would always be Trish's son, and that was the point, that nobody should speak to his mother the way I had the day before, and I needed to apologize to clear the air. I felt like I had entered some kind of weird Twilight Zone where I had accidentally married a 9-year-old instead of an adult man. So I just asked him to open the car so we could leave. He repeatedly refused, then walked back inside and said he would see me in there when I was acting more reasonable. You can probably guess what happened next. I left my bag on the passenger seat, so he probably assumed my keys were in there. No, I waited 30 seconds, then just hopped into the car and drove away. My phone blew up with a million calls from him, Trish, and my father-in-law. Eventually, my mom and dad and my sister Jess, who I'm super close with, called as well. I briefly texted Jess about what was happening the day before, but she was stunned to get the full blow-by-blow. By the time I was on the open road, I asked her to phone Jack and tell him he could walk home for all I care. Once she heard my side of the story and not Jack's, which was apparently that I had gone crazy, frightened Trish, snatched Annie, and sped away, she calmed. Way down, Mom, Dad, and Jess offered to start driving and meet me halfway so I could switch with one of them and wouldn't have to drive the full 12 hours by myself in one day. I was so grateful to see them, I pretty much broke down in a truck stop parking lot while I blubbered that I loved them. They all took turns driving while I had a rest. It was super reassuring to talk it over and hear that Trish and Jack are the unreasonable ones. Once we got back, I stayed at my parents' overnight, and they said I could stay as long as I needed. The next few days were fairly tense. I was up most of the night making sure Annie didn't scratch, which she did anyway, somehow, and it seemed like she just cried and cried and cried until she was exhausted. She has 5 scars on her face and a few others on her arms from scratching. I know appearances shouldn't matter, but I'm so angry her skin is marked for life now over some stupid bullshit. This whole thing is just something I never expected to happen. I answered one of Jack's calls only to have him start a rant that he didn't recognize this person I had become, so I hung up on him. He was due to come back for the start of the work year, which I wasn't looking forward to, but I figured we could make it work as long as Trish was 12 hours away. Then at like 11 p.m. one night, I got a very short and formal text from father-in-law via Jack's phone, saying Trish had come down with shingles and was in the emergency room, that Jack was staying there to care for her, and that he would work from their house remotely once the year started back up. Jack's been there for the past few weeks, tending to Mama's every whim. I'm sure she's put on an Oscar-worthy performance of having one foot in the grave. And according to Google, it should be any day now that her painful, crusty pustules go gently into that sweet night. A few weeks ago, I was honestly so tired and overwhelmed and in disbelief that I didn't know what to do. Now I'm back at home with people who actually care about me. I think I'm starting to realize how lucky I am to see the weird relationship with his mommy. This early on, the fact that he cares more about Trish than his own daughter speaks volumes. When he eventually comes back, I think we'll have to have a serious talk about our future together. Am I the a-hole for blowing up on my pregnant wife and putting my foot down after her blow-up? We are renting a 2-bedroom house from an older man, we'll call him G for this. I don't know how to really describe G, but older retired military is the closest. This man has been nothing but kind to us far more than either one of our parents have been. We live in California, and the average rent in our area is around $2,600 for a 2-bedroom. At first, we were a bit skeptical because the house was advertised, but G wanted to meet the tenants personally before anything else. The listing stated $2,500, but was also stated negotiable. We met with G, and I don't know if he liked us or felt sorry because we told him our story, but he offered us the place for $1,600. Any problems we have ever had throughout the 6 years me and my wife have lived in the house was fixed within 48 hours. G is the landlord everyone wishes they had. He isn't money hungry, and if rent is a bit late, he understands as long as you keep him informed. We haven't had an issue with him in 6 years. I've asked him why he is renting the house out to us so cheap, and his story broke my heart. He bought the house for his daughter a couple of years before we moved in, but unfortunately she and her fiancé died in a car crash, and he couldn't find the heart to sell it, but also doesn't just want it to stay empty. During COVID, when my wife lost her job and I had to take a pay cut, I called him and told him about the situation. I asked if it was possible for us to perhaps pay a couple 100 less in rent, and then I will pay everything back once COVID stopped. He came over and talked to me and my wife. After 2 hours of talking, he said that he would forgive half our rent until the whole COVID thing is done, and then we could just go back to the original contract. I can't describe how happy I was. I thanked him with tears in my eyes. With the $700 saved on rent, we were able to keep our head above water during that crisis. Above it, the kind of man G is. My wife is currently 5 months pregnant. G had some health scares, so we haven't seen him for the last 6 months. He came over the day before, yesterday, to tell us he is healthy again and will again take up the care responsible. So if anything is needed, to give him a call. He saw my wife and obviously the belly and asked how far along she was. We told him, and he just had this smile from ear to ear and say congratulations before. He walked off. He said kids are expensive, so as a baby gift from me, let's make the rent an even $1,000 until the baby is born. I have an idea why, but for some reason this set my wife off completely. She started yelling AG, calling him an old man that is looking down on us, and that he can take his useless gift and shove it up as a hole. She was yelling for like 3 minutes, and every time I tried to stop her, she would just get louder and louder. I don't know what got into my wife, but at the end of her rant, she said, if you really want to gift us something for our baby, you should not let us pay rent at all, you stupid old man. That is what you call a gift. G took everything she said and didn't say a word back his face. Just went from happy to completely emotionless. After my wife was done, he just left. I blew up on my wife and asked her what the F she was thinking, as G never did anything wrong to us. She just started to cry and refused to talk to me the rest of the night. Every time I brought it up, she would start crying, but I caught on to the crocodile tears and told her to just stop because I want an explanation. Yesterday morning before I left for work, I told her she better be ready, because ready or not, when I got home, we will talk about what happened, and I will not accept her fake tears. I got a text from G telling me we have to talk. He asked to meet at the house at 5, and I agreed. We met up at the house, and he asked to come in. We sat in the living room, and he asked if my wife could join us, and she did. He didn't ask why. What happened? Nothing. All he did was lay out what will be happening going forward. He said the gift will no longer be happening, and he will expect the full rent at the end of the month, no excuses. He said the rent will stay $1,600 until our lease is up for renewal, which is ending in this year. And when the lease is over, we are more than welcome to renew. Then he will be charging us market rate for the house. That is more than a $1,000 increase. I tried to talk to him, but he refused to listen and then just walked out of the house. My wife was white as a ghost in the coach and stammered, what are we going to do? Because she knows an $1,000 increase in the rent will lead us back to living on paycheck to paycheck. My paycheck is enough to cover literally every single bill until my promotion in 14 months. I blew up and told her this shift is her doing. She asked me to run after G and talk, or to call him and try and talk to him. But G is refusing. The only message I got back was, please contact me if it has something to do with the house, not for any personal matters, as our relationship will only be strictly landlord and tenant. That is it. My wife is frantically trying to call G and apologized, but he isn't answering her calls. She knows her part-time job paycheck might not be enough, and I told her we will need to downsize. She is not happy. I am not happy with my wife at all, and she is calling me in a hole because I'm mad at her. $1,000 doesn't sound like a lot for some, but for me, it is a lot of money. My wife's paycheck would not have been touched for rent or anything, but now it has to, as I told her she will cover the $1,000 if she want to stay in this house, as I refuses to take up longer hours or more shifts. She is devastated because her part-time job salary might not be enough, and she will have to go back to full-time work. Sorry if my post is all over the place. I'm tired, and my emotions aren't at the right place currently, as I'm stressing about things that hasn't even crossed my mind before, and things I haven't had to stress over. The situations sound rough, I know, but like I said above, I am up for a promotion at work for my manager's job when he retires in 14 months. I am assured the job and have it in writing. The increase is enough for my wife to only to part-time work, but that will only be in 14 months, and she has to cover the missing $1,000 for the rent, as I'm refusing. I don't want to move, but if she doesn't cover the missing $1,000 or can't, we will have to. Edit. I have asked my wife G has done something or said something to her that caused her reaction to him wanting to give as a gift, and she in tears told me no, but can't or won't give me a reason. To me, in my mind, I took what she said at face value, and I believe that she thinks G was looking down on us, as she said when he made the offer. That $500 would have helped monumentally, and my wife know that. She also knows getting a house like we currently have and as good as we have it in the house is not a guarantee. because we have read numerous stories on Reddit about other landlord, and she herself has always expected how lucky we have been. Edit 2, I worded it like shift in my post, sorry our lease is up for renewal. But our lease will basically be canceled and not renewed. We will basically have to reapply for the lease, and the new amount will be market rate. He said for the fact that we have been good tenants far, he will give us first option to the house. Edit 3, because it keeps coming up, I actually forgot how far Reddit can go with things. I know this sounds shifty of me, but I am more sure that G hasn't slept with my wife than I am my wife has never cheated on me. Myself including, I have never met a man more set on morals and principles. He still wears his wedding ring, even though his wife has been dead for more than 10 years. When I asked him about a woman or girlfriend in his life, he said no. His wife is waiting for him, and he will not disappoint her.